everybody, and welcome to The Deep Dive. We're diving into something today that you use every single day,
Oh, yeah.
probably without even thinking about how important it is.
Yeah.
Interpersonal communication.
Right.
We're not talking about just shooting the breeze,
Small talk.
Right, small talk. We're talking about the real deal.
Yeah.
How you connect with other people,
Right.
how you build relationships,
Uh-huh.
how you navigate tough situations, and how you achieve your goals.
Absolutely.
So let's unpack this whole idea of interpersonal communication.
Yeah.
Our source for this deep dive is a podcast called Mastering Interpersonal Communication. It's hosted by a guy named Nufel Sagir.
Okay.
And one of the things that really hit me hard listening to this podcast was how much emphasis he puts on the nonverbal side of communication.
Right.
It's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, it's funny. We spend years learning how to read and write.
Right.
But communicating effectively goes way beyond just words on a page. It's this complicated dance of verbal and nonverbal cues.
Okay, so let's unpack this dance a little bit.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. You could say, I'm fine, in a dozen different ways, and each one could convey completely different emotion.
Yeah.
And the podcast gives this fascinating example of how stress or anxiety can just totally undermine your message.
Oh, wow.
Even if your words sound all calm and collected.
So even if I've got, like perfect grammar,
Right.
and I know exactly what to say, my body language could be telling a totally different story.
It could be. Yeah, absolutely.
That's terrifying.
It is. Imagine you're in a job interview. You know you're nailing every single question.
Yeah.
But unconsciously, you're fidgeting.
Yeah.
Or you're avoiding eye contact.
Oh, yeah.
Those nonverbal signals could make the interviewer think, well, this person doesn't seem very confident. Even if you are totally qualified,
Right.
it's almost like your body is working against you.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I can even see it if I was giving a presentation and my voice starts to shake a little bit, even though I know the material front to back. So how do we avoid these nonverbal pitfalls?
Well, I think it all starts with awareness.
Okay.
Just knowing that your nonverbal cues are sending a message
Right.
can make a big difference.
Okay.
Pay attention to your posture,
Yeah.
your facial expressions, even the tone of your voice.
Right.
Are they all matching up with the message you're trying to get across?
So, if I want to come across as, confident and approachable,
Yeah.
I should stand up straight and make eye contact.
Right.
Simple things.
It sounds simple, but I bet you most of us don't even realize we're doing those things.
Yeah, probably not.
The podcast has a great suggestion.
Oh, yeah.
It suggests practicing in front of a mirror or even recording yourself
Oh, wow.
to see how you come across nonverbally.
That is a really good idea.
It might be a little awkward at first,
Yeah.
but it's a really valuable tool for self-awareness.
Yeah, it's like having a personal coach, but without having to pay for it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, while nonverbal communication is really important, we can't forget about the verbal side of communication.
Right.
That's where active listening comes in.
Okay, so we've all heard this term active listening a million times.
Oh, yeah, right.
What does it actually look like in practice?
So it's so much more than just nodding your head and saying,
Yeah.
at the right times.
So what is it?
Active listening is about engaging with what the other person is saying,
Okay.
both verbally and non-verbally, being present in that moment, putting aside your own thoughts and distractions, and really trying to understand the speaker's perspective.
It's not about, just waiting for my turn to talk.
Right.
It's about absorbing what the other person is saying,
Yeah.
trying to see things from their point of view. That's hard.
It can be challenging, especially if you're in a disagreement.
Yeah.
But it's so worth it. When you really listen to somebody, you build trust.
Right.
You strengthen relationships.
Yeah.
And you avoid misunderstandings.
I can see that.
Plus, it shows respect, which is essential for any healthy communication.
So it's like the bedrock
It is. It's the foundation.
of good communication.
Yeah.
Everything else is built on top of that.
Exactly. And Neufeld gives a really good tip for practicing active listening.
Okay, what's that?
He calls it reflecting back what you hear to make sure everything's clear.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, yeah, I got it,
Uh-huh.
try summarizing what you understand
Okay.
and ask something like, is that what you meant? Or, did I understand you correctly?
That's such a good idea.
It's simple,
Yeah.
but it shows you're engaged.
Yeah.
It helps you avoid those misunderstandings. It prevents those awkward moments when you realize you've been nodding along and you have no idea what the other person is talking about.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Right.
Oh, totally.
You're just making sure you're both on the same page.
Right.
Which is essential for clear and effective communication.
I love it. Now, even with the best intentions, and even if we are actively listening, there are still things that can get in the way of good communication.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Dufel calls these barriers to effective communication.
Barriers? What do you mean barriers?
We're talking about things that block understanding.
Okay.
Even when both people are genuinely trying to communicate. One of the biggest barriers that he talks about is cultural differences.
That makes total sense.
Right.
I mean, we all come from different backgrounds. We do with different norms and communication styles. Something that might be polite in one culture could be totally rude in another.
Absolutely.
Remember that time you went on that trip abroad?
Oh, yeah.
And all of your attempts at being friendly were just met with these blank stares.
Yes.
That's a perfect example of how cultural differences can lead to miscommunication, even when everybody's got good intentions.
Absolutely. So awkward.
It was trying to be friendly, but my American-style small talk was not translating.
It wasn't working.
So effective communication is not just about the words themselves. It's also about the context, the cultural cues, all that stuff.
The podcast actually gives some really great advice.
Oh, does it?
For navigating cultural differences.
I'd love to hear that.
It all starts with awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing that different cultures have different communication styles.
Right.
And being open to learning about those differences.
So, like, if I'm going to travel to a new country, I should do some research.
It's a good idea.
Learn about the culture, the communication styles, so I can be respectful.
But sensitive to those differences?
Yeah.
Don't assume everybody communicates the same way you do.
Right.
It's not just about avoiding giving offense. It's about making sure your message is getting across.
Right.
If you're not aware of the nuances,
you
might be sending the wrong signals.
That's a really good point.
And it gets even deeper than that.
Oh, really?
Because another barrier he talks about is emotional barriers.
Oh, I can relate to this one.
Right.
We all have days when we're stressed, anxious,
of course,
overly excited, and it clouds our judgment.
It does.
Affects how we communicate.
When we're caught up in our own emotions, it's hard to listen effectively. It's hard to interpret nonverbal cues.
Right.
It's even hard to articulate our own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it's like if I'm having a disagreement with someone, but I'm super frustrated, it's almost impossible to even hear what they're saying.
It is.
Because I'm so caught up in my own emotions.
It's so focused on yourself.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Total disaster.
Right.
So how do we deal with this?
Well, the podcast really emphasizes the importance of recognizing when your emotions are getting in the way, if you're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Take a step back.
Okay.
Calm down. Revisit the conversation later.
Okay.
When you're in a better headspace.
So just take a break.
Exactly.
Give myself some time to cool off. Yeah, and then come back to it.
When you can think a little more clearly.
I like that.
Right.
It's about being mindful of my own emotional state.
It is.
Okay.
And this leads us to another barrier.
Another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Physical barriers.
That's what you mean, physical barriers.
I know it sounds strange, but think about it. In today's world, we're constantly bombarded with distractions.
Oh, yeah.
Our phones are buzzing. Emails are popping up.
Yep.
It's so easy to get pulled away.
My phone is like a magnet.
Right.
Even when I'm trying to have a face-to-face conversation.
Even when you're trying to be present.
I know.
Those distractions can really affect the quality of our communication.
Yeah.
Even if we're physically there, our minds might be somewhere else.
Scrolling through Instagram.
Checking our to-do list.
Yeah.
We're there, but we're not really there. And I bet the other person can sense that. It can feel hurtful.
Yeah.
It sends the message that you're not interested in what they have to say.
Right.
Even if that's not your intention at all.
It's a barrier.
It is a barrier to connection. So it's not just about putting your phone away.
Okay.
It's about being present in the moment.
Okay.
And really engaging with the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
Give them your undivided attention.
Okay, so physical barriers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We have to create a space for meaningful conversation.
Right. And speaking of meaningful conversation, that brings us to like the strategies for improving our communication skills.
Okay.
Are you ready to level up your communication game?
I'm ready, are you?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Give me the goods.
Well, it starts with, you guessed it, active listening.
Okay.
It's the foundation. But the podcast goes beyond just defining it.
Okay.
It gives you specific techniques.
Okay, I want those.
For putting it into practice.
Gimme.
Okay. One of the simplest but most powerful techniques is asking clarifying questions.
Okay.
So instead of assuming you understand what somebody's saying, take a moment to rephrase what you heard.
Okay.
Ask, is that right?
Yeah.
Or did I understand you correctly?
Yeah.
It shows that you're really engaged.
Right.
And it helps prevent misinterpretations.
I think sometimes we're just so excited to share our own thoughts that we forget to really understand what the other person's saying.
It happens.
Yeah.
And asking those clarifying questions shows that you're interested in their perspective. What other strategies are there?
Okay.
Another powerful one is reflecting back the speaker's emotions. So you might say something like, you seem frustrated, or I can hear the excitement in your voice.
Yeah.
That shows empathy.
Right.
It helps the speaker feel heard.
Yeah.
And understood.
So it's not just about the facts.
It's not.
And the information.
It's about the feelings.
It's about acknowledging those feelings.
Recognizing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can make a huge difference in building trust.
Totally.
And rapport.
Yeah. Especially in like emotionally charged conversations.
Right. Especially that.
Yeah.
Okay. And don't underestimate the power of nonverbal communication. Be mindful of your own body language.
Okay.
Make sure it matches your words.
Yeah.
Simple things.
Yeah.
Eye contact. Nodding your head.
Right.
Having an open posture.
Yeah.
It all makes a difference.
That reminds me of that advice to like smile when you answer the phone, even though they can't see you.
Right.
It affects the tone of your voice.
It does.
Yeah.
And it works both ways.
Okay.
Pay attention to the other person's nonverbal cues too. Are they fidgeting?
Yeah.
Avoiding eye contact?
Right.
Those cues might be telling you something important about how they're feeling.
Okay. So be aware of my own nonverbal cues, but also pay attention to other people's.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, another thing he talks about is the power of asking open-ended questions.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of asking questions that can be answered with yes or no, try asking questions that encourage the speaker to elaborate.
Okay.
And share their thoughts and feelings.
So instead of asking, did you have a good day?
Right.
I might ask, what was the highlight of your day?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That invites a more detailed response.
Yeah, it's like a magic key.
It is.
That unlocks deeper conversation.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And finally, interpersonal communication isn't just about one-on-one.
Right.
It's important in all these different contexts.
Yeah.
Personal relationships.
Right.
The workplace.
Yeah.
Education.
It's everywhere.
It's a universal language.
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating.
It is.
We're not just talking about how to improve our small talk.
Right.
We're talking about skills that can enhance our relationships.
Yeah.
Boost our careers. Help us connect with other people on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And we'll be exploring those different contexts in a lot more detail.
Cool.
In the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome. I can't wait.
So stay tuned.
All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're going to keep exploring interpersonal communication.
Okay.
We're building on those great ideas from that podcast.
Mastering interpersonal communication.
That's the one.
It's like, you know, we've been given this awesome toolkit.
Yeah.
But now comes the hard part, actually using it.
Right. Putting these strategies into practice.
Yeah, in our real lives.
In real life.
Right. And one thing that really stood out to me from the podcast was this idea that mastering interpersonal communication isn't about reaching some kind of finish line.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
It's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey of learning and growth.
Absolutely. New Philisegier.
The host.
Yeah, the podcast host. He really emphasizes this throughout the whole series. It's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about constantly trying to improve.
It's progress over perfection.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this actually ties into another really interesting idea from the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness, what does that have to do with communication?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Mindfulness is all about being present in the moment.
Okay.
Being aware of your thoughts and feelings and your sensations without judging them.
Okay.
Now, when you bring that same kind of awareness to your conversations with other people, something amazing happens.
Really?
You're actually paying attention to what's being said,
Okay.
how it's being said, and how you're responding.
So instead of just going through the motions of talking,
right,
you're really tuned in.
You're tuned in. You're present.
It's like when you're talking to someone and they're like constantly checking their phone.
Oh, I hate that.
It's like you can tell.
You can totally tell.
You're not really there.
Their attention is divided.
Yeah.
Makes it hard to really connect.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is about being fully present, both physically and mentally.
Okay, so how does being mindful actually make me a better communicator?
Well, for one thing,
Yeah.
it helps you become more self-aware.
Okay.
When you pay attention to your thoughts and feelings, you get a better sense of how they might be affecting your communication.
Like, for example, if I'm stressed or anxious, I might be more likely to, like, snap at someone.
Yeah. Or you might misunderstand what they're saying.
That happens all the time.
It happens to all of us.
So mindfulness helps me to, like, recognize those patterns.
It does.
And, like, make a choice about how I respond.
Exactly. Instead of just reacting without thinking, you can take a breath.
Okay.
And choose a more thoughtful approach.
So I can have more control.
You have more control.
Over my reactions.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. And this ties into another really important point from the podcast.
Okay.
Embracing feedback.
Ugh, I know, right?
Nobody likes feedback.
It's hard.
It's so hard to hear criticism.
Even if it's meant to be helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like this automatic reaction to get defensive.
Totally. Especially when it's about communication.
Oh, yeah. It feels so personal.
It does.
But you know what? Podcast encourages us to think of feedback as a gift.
A gift.
Yeah, a gift.
Okay.
It's a chance to learn and grow.
Okay.
Even the best communicators can get better.
Right.
So try to see it as a way to learn about yourself.
Okay.
Not as a personal attack. Okay, so shift my perspective.
Exactly.
See it as an opportunity.
Yeah. In fact, the podcast even suggests asking people you trust for feedback.
Oh, wow.
Ask them what they think about your communication.
So, like, what am I good at?
Yeah. What are you good at?
What could I improve on?
What are your weaknesses?
Okay, so it's like having a coach.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's free.
All right, I like that. And you know what's really cool?
Right.
This whole idea of learning and growing, it connects to all the different ways we use interpersonal communication.
It does.
Our relationships, or
work everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's this never-ending journey.
Yeah.
You know, there's always something new to learn.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating.
I agree.
It's not just a set of skills to master.
Right.
It's this dynamic process that's constantly changing.
Evolving.
Yeah.
And it shapes everything.
It does.
Your relationships, your career, your well-being.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
okay,
what are some key takeaways?
Okay, well, I think the most important thing
is
to remember that communication is a two-way street.
Right.
It's not just about getting your point across.
Right.
It's about really listening.
Okay.
Understanding the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
Active listening.
Right.
Being present. Paying attention.
To those verbal and nonverbal cues.
That's right.
Yeah, and trying to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly.
Okay, and we also talked about mindfulness.
Yeah.
Bringing that awareness to our interactions. Slowing down. Tuning in.
Yeah.
Really being present.
It's tough, but it's worth it.
It is.
And finally, embrace feedback. I know.
Okay.
But use it to grow.
Okay.
Ask people you trust.
Yeah.
For their honest opinions.
Okay.
And remember, it's not about being perfect.
It's about progress.
Progress, not perfection.
Yeah. And it's a journey worth taking.
It is. Because in the end, it's about connecting with other people.
That's what it's all about.
In a meaningful way.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to see where this journey takes all of us.
I am too.
Now, in the last part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some thought-provoking questions.
Ooh, I like that.
That go beyond the specific things we learned from the podcast.
Okay.
But are inspired by the themes we've been talking about.
I can't wait.
So get ready for a mind-expanding conversation.
I'm ready.
Are you?
Oh, absolutely I am. Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into interpersonal communication.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. Exploring how we connect with each other.
All those little details, those nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I know. We've covered so much.
We have, from active listening to nonverbal cues, all those barriers that can trip us up.
Right.
I think it's time to, shift gears a little bit and explore some of the bigger questions that this all brings up.
Oh, I like that.
You know, we've learned the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Now let's see how we can use them, not just to communicate, but to really make a difference.
I love that.
In our relationships and our interactions with everyone.
So let's start with this.
Okay.
The podcast we've been talking about, it talked about cultural differences as a barrier.
As a barrier to communication.
Yeah. But what if we, flip that on its head?
Oh, okay, interesting.
What if understanding those differences actually helped us to understand each other better?
Okay.
What if it was a bridge?
A bridge instead of a barrier.
Yeah, to greater understanding and empathy.
That's a great point.
So instead of seeing those differences as obstacles, we could see them as chances to learn and grow and connect with people from different backgrounds.
Connect on a deeper level.
Yeah.
I love that.
Embrace different communication styles. Learn about nonverbal cues from different cultures.
Right.
Realize that there's not just one right way to express yourself.
It's like learning a new language.
Yeah.
Expanding your vocabulary.
Totally.
Beyond just words.
Yeah, and it opens up this whole new world
It does.
of understanding and connection.
It does.
It reminds me of when I was working on a project with a team from another country. There were definitely some communication issues along the way.
Of course.
But we were patient. We asked questions. And we really tried to understand their perspective.
That's so important.
And in the end, we built trust.
Yeah.
And created something amazing together.
I love that story.
It was a good experience.
That's a great example of how embracing differences can lead to something really great.
Totally. And it kind of leads to another question.
Okay.
How can understanding those barriers, like the emotional ones we talked about, help us to have more compassion for others?
That's a great question.
So instead of getting frustrated when someone is having a hard time communicating, we could try to understand what might be going on.
What's underneath?
Yeah, maybe they're stressed. Or overwhelmed. Or dealing with some personal stuff. And that's making it hard for them to communicate. So if we recognize those barriers, we can have more empathy for them.
More patience.
More
understanding.
It's like remembering that everybody is fighting their own battles. And sometimes those battles make it hard to talk.
Absolutely.
So instead of judging or getting defensive, we can offer support.
Create a safe space.
For them to share.
I like that.
And here's another question.
Okay.
In a world where there's so much information and we can communicate instantly.
Like all the time.
Right. How do we make sure our messages are not just heard, but really understood?
That is the question, isn't it? Because it's so easy.
I know.
Just to send a quick text.
Or an email without thinking about how it might come across.
Yeah, exactly.
But communicating effectively takes more than that.
It does.
You have to be mindful.
Be intentional.
Yeah. Think about our audience.
Yeah.
Tailor our message to the situation.
Choose your words carefully.
Right.
Be mindful of your nonverbal cues, too.
Yeah, make sure they're matching what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between throwing a message in a bottle and hoping it reaches someone versus having a face-to-face conversation.
Right.
Where you can see how the other person's reacting. Adjust your approach.
Make sure you're really connecting.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our last question.
Okay.
Maybe the most important question of all.
Ooh, okay.
How can we use communication to bridge divides, to help people understand each other better, and to build a more compassionate world?
That is a big question.
It is a big one.
But it's important.
It is.
Because communication has the power
It does.
to bring people together.
When we communicate well,
we
create space for empathy, understanding, and collaboration. We break down walls and we build bridges.
It's about realizing that communication isn't just about sharing facts.
It's about so much more.
It's about building relationships, creating trust, finding that shared humanity.
That's what it's all about.
And that's what makes this whole journey of learning to communicate better so worthwhile.
Absolutely.
It's not just about me.
Right.
It's about using my skills to make the world a better place.
Exactly.
So as you go out into the world with all these new insights,
I hope you put them to good use. Not just the techniques. But also think about those big questions.
Okay.
How can you use communication to make the world a more compassionate place?
A more understanding place.
A more connected place.
What a great way to end our deep dive.
It has been a deep dive.
It has. We've gone from those tiny details of how we talk to each other to the core of what it means to be human.
Absolutely.
I'm inspired to go out and communicate with intention.
With empathy.
With purpose.
Yes.
It's been great diving deep with you.
Same here.
Keep those conversations going.
And flowing.
Yeah. And thanks for joining us on the deep dive.